right. Okay, well, good afternoon and welcome to the first meeting of the 2024 legislative session of the Public Safety Subcommittee of the Judiciary Committee. I am Delegate Nicole Williams. Oh, it's now being recorded. Uh-oh. Okay, let's try this again. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the first meeting of the 2024 legislative session of the Public Safety Subcommittee of the Judiciary Committee. We have four bills that we will be looking at today. And I see Delegate Pippi here for our first bill, which is going to be, let me find my little cheat sheet here. House Bill 141. And this bill, let's see here. And there are amendments to this bill. But this is the criminal procedure, child abuse victim, testimony taken outside of a courtroom. And so I'm a little rusty since this is our first meeting for the year. But I guess we'll start with the bill sponsors. And see if there is any information that you want to provide to the bill. For the committee members, there are amendments to this bill, which you should have received. If you don't have the amendments, please let me know, and we'll make sure to send those right over to you. But there are amendments that I see that Delegates Pippi and Simpson work diligently on. So Delegate Pippi, if you want to kind of start us off.
Sure. So, Chair Williams, thanks for the opportunity to be here. The subcommittee should see a reprint. I think that is the best way to look at this because our amendment to our original bill was very confusing, whereas the reprint just does really two things. It removes a sentence from the existing law, which talks about reasonably communicate. As we talked about in the hearing, that word reasonably communicate is difficult to interpret by the judiciary. And essentially, it almost gives the impression that even though testifying may cause severe emotional distress to the victim, as long as they can reasonably communicate, they still have to do so inside the courtroom in front of their abuser. And so our reprint removes that sentence and also adds a protection for both the defendant and the victim by saying that this would not apply if neither one had an attorney present. So, for example, a victim could not testify outside of the courtroom unless the defendant's attorney was there in person with the victim testifying. And that is a protection for both the defendant and the victim. So that reprint looks great. I think that sums it up quite well. Also want to point out that the judiciary has withdrawn their opposition to the bill. So with this reprint, the judiciary is now in support, not opposed. So I thought that was good for your members to know that. And I don't know if Joyce King is on the horn, and it's obviously up to the chair, but if she has any input or the chair would allow, I'm good.
Okay. Thank you, Delegate Pippi. And that is good to know. Do you have something in writing from the judiciary with regards to their withdrawal?
So my staff informed me that today. What we'll do is I will have him, I think he's listening to this right now. I'll have him email you directly with that correspondence, and then maybe you could distribute that to your members.
Okay, that would be great.
Okay.
And one of the questions that I had, I also saw that the Office of the Public Defender, as well as the State Bar Association, had some concerns, but it didn't look like they addressed the amendments. Do you know where they are now with the amendments?
So generally, the concerns came from what originally was the rebuttable presumption in the bill, and we have stripped that out. And so I hate to say it, but the parts that folks had the most consternation about, we've taken out. And we've made the bill very simple. I'm not sure if that jives with the public defender. I think their question was related to the Sixth Amendment and addressing your accuser. But as I stated in the hearing, there is a Supreme Court case a U.S. Supreme Court case, actually from Maryland, that states a victim of child abuse actually is permitted to testify outside of a courtroom as long as certain rules are followed. So this law is in compliance with that Supreme Court holding, where counselor, as you know, is the law of the land. And so I'm happy that I think at this point we have responded to any objections about the bill, with both the first issue of the rebuttable presumption and the second with the facing your accuser. So
Wonderful. Members of the committee, does anyone have any questions for Delegate Pippin? We do have Joyce King with us, as well as
Debbie Feinstein. Yeah, Debbie's here too.
Okay. Yeah, I saw Debbie pop in as well. And I assuming Joyce and Debbie that the bill now as amended works, that the States Attorneys Association they're okay with the amendments?
Yes, very okay with the amendments.
Okay. All right, sounds good. Delegate Taylor, I do see your hand.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for bringing this bill. Listen, how does that work? Like, is the child still at the courtroom, but in a separate room, using this closed circuit?
So closed circuit is a little bit outdated. We probably do it with Zoom or Teams or whatever the courthouse is using. But typically they're in the judge's chambers. That's my understanding of how it works. So like our judge's chambers are adjacent to their courtrooms. The biggest difference is while the defendant can see the child can't see the defendant. And in the room with the child is the attorney for the defendant, as well as the prosecutor, and then the judge, I believe, is in the courtroom as well. So really the difference is that, and I think what the argument against it is, you don't get to confront the child face to face, the defendant doesn't, but the lawyer is present for that piece. And there's been case law that has found that to be satisfactory.
Thank you.
Sure.
Are there any other questions? Yes, Delegate Valentine.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I just wanted to clarify the first part because I'm looking at the revisions. And could you explain to me, is this how every case will move forward from this point forward, or only cases in which certain criteria are met will be testified remotely? I'm trying to figure out which way this is written.
Delegate, would you like me to answer that?
sure.
So there are very specific criteria under which this could be used. And my experience is that it's been that the state actually has to file a motion requesting it, and then the court holds a hearing. And while currently the standard is that the state has to show that the victim would suffer serious emotional stress such that the child victim cannot reasonably communicate, we're in this bill, it puts forward just the victim suffering serious emotional distress. And then it lays out a procedure that the court needs to follow to determine whether the child is suffering from serious emotional distress. So the court has a pretrial observation of the child and can question them. This is outside of the presence of the defendant. They can hear testimony from a parent or custodian of the child or other person. For example, we've had a service provider testify about the impact on the child. And that's really what the pretrial hearing determines. So it's not in every case. It's only in cases that we can meet that standard. And the issue with the current law is that we literally, it is a very rare case that we'll be able to show that the child is rendered mute, which is essentially what the law currently requires. But the serious emotional distress, we see not infrequently, but there will be a gatekeeper. The court will be the gatekeeper.
Thank you. That clarifies my question. Thank you.
Sure.
Well, thank you, Delegate Pippi. I think the amendments really help to kind of clear up some things. I don't know if folks feel comfortable to move this to a vote, but I will entertain a motion.
Motion for favorable.
Thank you, Delegate Conway. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. And then, council, if you can correct me if I'm wrong, we need to do do we need to do a roll call vote on this or just a show of hands? Like I said, I'm a little rusty here. This is our first one for the season.
Roll call.
I was asking Council Delegate Conway. Thank you, though.
I'm requesting for a roll call. I'd like to have a written document of this. It's very important. I want Delegate Pipke to, I want the delegate to remember me.
I'm sorry, I'm a guest counsel. Claire is usually the counsel for your subcommittee, so I'm not sure if she's here, but what you usually.
I do see a box that says Claire. I don't know.
Okay, she can chime in on what your procedures are, but I would suggest also you should adopt the amendment first, perhaps, and then.
That's true. See, that's why. Thank you, Lauren. I told you I'm a little rusty. So let's back up. Can I get a motion to adopt the amendment?
Madam Chair, I move that we adopt the amendment.
Is there a second?
Second, Madam Chair.
Okay, and I think this can be done with a show of hands, I believe. So all of those in favor of the amendment, either raise your actual hand or virtual hand. Okay, let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in favor of the amendment. Okay, thank you. And then, anyone against the amendment? Nope, okay. The amendment passes. And then, if we can, I guess, revisit the previous motion to move favorable with amendment.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
And we'll just do a roll call vote. So Frank, yes, I see your hand, Delegate Conway.
I was just raising my hand and saying I'm voting yes, that's all.
Oh, you're voting yes. Okay, good, because you're first on my list. All right. Is Delegate Crutchfield here? All right, I see her. Don't see her there. Next, Delegate Munoz. Okay. Delegate Pastor.
Yes.
Delegate Phillips. Delegate Schmidt.
Yes.
Delegate Simpson.
Yes.
Delegate Taylor.
Yes.
Delegate Tolles. Delegate Tolles. All right, I see a picture of Delegate Tolles. All right, we'll come back.
I say yes.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay, no worries. Delegate Tomlinson.
Yes, Delegate Tomlinson votes in favor.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that was you. Okay, thank you. And Delegate Valentine.
Yes.
Okay. All right, the measure passes favorable with. All right, well, thank you so much, Delegate Pipke.
Thank you, Chair and committee members. I appreciate you and enjoy the rest of your meeting.
Thank you, you too. All right. Okay, so the next bill we have in front of us is a departmental bill. And this is House Bill 172. And I don't know if we have anyone on here either from the Department of the State Police. I know, unfortunately, Chair Clippinger had mentioned that he will be unable to make it here for the subcommittee meeting. But that is where we are. So is there anyone here on House Bill 172? No. Okay. It looked like the state police had a favorable, but with some amendments. Let me
Do we
check
have
my
do we have a reprint of the amendments? Because I can see the amendments, but I don't have a
Yeah,
reprint.
we do. Let me see if I have, if there's a reprint attached to this. And I think, is this Claire?
Yes.
Okay.
Now I did not actually provide a reprint of those. I'm sorry, but it was just adding some things to the bill. So I just thought they were easy enough to understand by just looking at them. I can explain them if you'd like.
Yeah, if you could, that would be great.
So this bill is basically a housekeeping bill, sponsored by the Department of State Police. And it's just authorizing the Secretary of Police to determine the manner and format for applications for certain professions that the state police gives licenses and certifications for. It's private detectives and security guards and security guard agencies. And it's the bill is just basically allowing for an electronic process. According to the department, the current application process is paper-based and the fees have to be made by check or money order. So this bill would just allow the department to make the entire application process electronic and accept electronic payments.
Okay.
So this is a reintroduction from last year. It passed the House, but did not do anything in the Senate. JPR did not vote on it. So the amendments they've submitted, so they noticed, like when our DLS analyst was doing the fiscal note, he noticed that they left some categories out of the bill. That is security systems technician and railroad police officer, and private detective agencies and security systems agencies. So when the state police were notified that those were left out, they submitted these amendments, and that's what the amendments do.
Okay. Okay. And I do see the fiscal note that's attached here. So it looks like it would decrease a little bit of the state general funds and has no minimal impact on small business, none on no local effect. So, okay. Delegate Taylor, I see your hand.
Yes, I had this bill last year. So it's been, there are a lot of categories that have been added. And I have a question about the amendments. Can we move on all the amendments as one in one motion, or do we have to do the amendments separately?
We can move on all of the amendments as one, because I think they're just one.
Is it just one amendment?
Oh, it's two amendments. There's amendment number 1 and then amendment number 2, if I'm reading this correct. Is that right, Claire?
It's one set of amendments. Amendment number 1 is just technical.
Okay. And then amendment number 2 is the one that adds in the other categories, it looks like.
Yes. Yes.
All right. With that said, Madam Chair, I move favorable on the amendments.
Okay. Are there any other questions or discussion?
And by the way, I just got a text from the Department of State Police. They said they were trying to join the subcommittee, but
They
weren't
might have
able.
the old link. Okay,
Yeah.
hold on 1 second. Let me see if we can get them in here. Give me 1 moment, guys. Claire, could you just let them know we're going to re-email them the new link?
Okay.
Okay. Okay, all right. They're gonna come in a minute. Like I said, it's the first one of the year, so we're all a little rusty. But what we'll do, why don't we, until they come in, maybe skip this one, and then when they come on, we can come back to 172. Because I'm sure that they're fine, but just in case there are questions for them, since this is their bill, I definitely want to give them the opportunity to provide any input that they may seem fit to the subcommittee. So we'll put 172 to the side for right now. And then next we'll go to House Bill 195, which is Delegate Guyton. And I do believe I saw Delegate Guyton here with us. Hi, Delegate Guyton. So thank you so much for putting in this bill. I don't know if there's some amendments here I have in front of me. Looks like 3, well, no, this is probably just a continuation of the first one. A couple of amendments. So I don't know if you want to speak about the bill and then also speak about the amendments, because I don't have an interlineated version of the amendments, just the regular version
Sure.
of the amendments.
Yeah, thank you so much. Are you directing that to me or to council? I'm fine doing it, but if you were directing it to her, I won't jump in.
Let's see, who's the council on this one? Is this Claire as well? For
Yes.
195?
Yes.
Okay. Claire, do you want to explain, I guess, to the committee the amendments?
I could, but I don't know the background behind them. I don't know why they were offered. But
I'm happy to do so if you like.
Okay.
Yeah, if you could, Delegate, that would be great.
Sure. Just to remind everyone, this bill creates a purple alert system in the state of Maryland, which is something that many other states are doing currently as well, to help us find more quickly and more effectively the people who fall in between the Amber Alert system and the Silver Alert system. And I know that you are all paying very, very close attention at the hearing because I saw you, so I appreciate that. I won't go into it in any more detail than that unless you have specific questions. I do have a national advocate who's in the waiting room if you have questions for her that hasn't been able to get in. But as far as the amendments, there's nothing in the amendment that you have in front of you. There are actually 3 separate ones that change anything substantive in the bill. 2 of them are technical. One just struck a word from the title. One of them rearranged some letters and numbers that were in there the wrong way. And one of them struck another word from later in the bill at the request. We just struck the word suffers from, which we took from another bill, and replaced it with a more sensitive just has an impairment. And that was at the request of disability groups. The other amendments that you have in front of you are all at the request of disability groups, particularly the DD Council. The Department of State Police may consult with relevant stakeholders presenting citizens with disabilities to develop the regulations and procedures to carry out this section. You'll note that we put may in there because we really feel like this bill is fairly well fleshed out, and we know that the department already has a lot of regs, from my understanding, ready to go. But they did want to have a say in it. So we're going to put that as a sign and signal to the department that they probably should talk to some of these folks as they continue to develop regs. And then the only other change was that we added, on behalf of NAMI, we added the term mental disorder as another category of people that would fall under this alert. And at the request of the Federation of the Deaf and Hard of Hearing, we added deaf and deafblind citizens as well. I did go back and check with the Federation of the Blind to see if they wanted to, after all these conversations, to see if they wanted to add anything, because they were pretty much the only very interested party that I hadn't heard from. They were fine with the bill as long as we did have deaf blind as requested by the Federation of the Deaf in the bill, which we do.
All right. Okay, sounds great. And then I know we were trying to get the Maryland State Police on the line for the previous bill. I think someone is joined by phone, so I don't know if that's them or not. I see a phone number ending in 6464.
Is that?
Yes, that is the Maryland State Police.
Okay, if you want to chime in, that would be great. You're muted at the moment. I don't know if we can see, we can unmute you there. Oh, I'm not a co-host.
Good
Okay,
afternoon. This is Catherine Kelly with Maryland State Police.
Yes, Kathy. Hi, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. Thank you for considering our bill. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Yeah, we had skipped over the Department Bill 172. There was also another bill 195, which is Delegate Guyton's bill dealing with the missing persons with cognitive impairment, Purple Heart program. I see that this Maryland State Police had also weighed in on that bill. I believe, well, you guys had provided a letter of information just really about the process. And so I didn't know if you also might have something to add to that one. If not, then if you want to hold until we get back to 172, we'll be more than happy to chat with you further.
We clarified the process with our letter of information on the Purple Alert, ma'am, and have nothing further to add.
Okay, thanks. And Delegate Guyton, you had mentioned, because I did see the National Federation of the Blind and NAMI were favorable with amendments. And so your testimony is that they are now favorable with these amendments that you have proposed.
Yes, those amendments were the amendments that they suggested. So yes, they are.
All right. And when I was reading the information letter from the state police, they had mentioned that this would only apply to individuals who are missing by car. So I just want to make sure that everyone's clear. It wouldn't apply to individuals who might be missing on foot or other.
Yeah.
That was
No, that is incorrect. That is the reason for this bill. Currently, what we have available, Amber Alert particularly, is only for people missing in cars. This is actually changing that to include people who are not only in cars, but are, the example that we gave multiple times was children going towards water, going towards swimming pools, so yeah, this is actually that group of people that is not already captured by what we have in Maryland law. And that's what she was referring to in her letter.
Okay. Okay. And I'm assuming that this would be, because you're involving the Maryland State Police, would be something that would be on the signs that you see on our federal highways, I-95, 495, etc., 695.
So if there's reason to believe that, I didn't know if you're asking her or me. So that would only apply if somebody were in a car, generally. That usually only applies if somebody is in a car.
Okay. And so then if they're not in a car, how would the alert, I guess I'm trying to make sure I understand the process. How would the alert go out then?
Yeah, so if they're not in a car, so Silver Alert, which is where we actually drew the majority of this language from, is not only for those in a car. So there are a multitude of ways that the state police can reach out to other law enforcement organizations, media in particular, to get this information out out to the public. Also in this bill, which is also in the Silver Alert, we have information going out to to schools and to a lot of other organizations and citizens that could help in the search. I think the biggest difference, though, I think as we spoke during the hearing, is that it's important for not only the public, but also for police officers to have an understanding of who they are looking for. And if you are just saying that Silver Alert takes care of helping us find people who have autism and Down syndrome and, are deafblind, we know that that's not the case. It's not working well for them. It's not working at all for them. And we also know that when people get into their head that an alert, a silver or amber, means a child or an older person, it's going to be very, very difficult to change that perception in order to allow them to expand their horizons and look for somebody with a disability. And also the search would look very different. People with Alzheimer's who fall under Silver Alert respond very, very differently to police officers and to members of the public. And they hide, well, they don't hide, they wander, which is very different than what some people with disabilities do. So you need to know which of those categories you're looking for in order to find them quickly and efficiently. So, and I did mention that I have the national advocate on the line as well. And I believe she's on with us too. She might be able to clarify a little bit more as well.
Okay, and you said she was in the waiting room, or is she on?
I believe she is on now.
I'm here. Can you,
Lori, okay.
Are you able to hear me okay?
Yes, yes, we can hear you. Did you have anything else that you wanted to add?
Oh, just to reiterate, I'm a parent. Also, I became an advocate because my son went missing. He went missing from his school on foot. And I'm in North Carolina. At that time, Amber Alert did not apply to him. Silver Alert criteria did not apply to him. Thankfully, he was found by a motorist, a nice one. And since that time, I've studied hundreds of these cases. I work with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. We're a partner of theirs. And so I help them with intake on missing persons with autism, and I help them create federal guidelines. So, the Silver Alert system has been, per state, it's effective in various ways. This is much different. This is much clearer, and this is something that our organization definitely advocates for. Are you still able to hear me okay?
I can hear you.
I froze a bit. So I apologize. I know you mentioned you were from South Carolina and that the Amber Alert and Silver Alert were not sufficient for your son. And I think that's where I kind of dropped off a little bit. So I apologize.
Oh, yeah. It's North Carolina. And so what's interesting is that once I pushed for my son to be included and children like my son to be included, they did change the Silver Alert criteria, but then they changed it back. About a year ago, I got a text from a deputy saying that she had a client with IDD and she could not get any kind of coverage for him. And so, a lot of these deputies are calling me back to say, hey, you need to push to get that criteria reopened, but they don't want the Silver Alert. They want something very specific for our populations. And quite honestly, that's going to be a more clear way of searching for these individuals who we know, at least in the autism population, are very likely to head straight to a nearby source of water, any type of water.
And Delegate Guyton, how many are there? I think you might have mentioned this in your initial testimony, that there are other states that have this.
Yes, thank you for that question. Actually, you all got my cute little paper in your emails. And it has a list of all of the states here: California, Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, New Jersey, Ohio, Texas, Delaware, Idaho, Minnesota. I can keep going, but there are quite a few that have a specific Purple Alert program, or they have named it after somebody else. Unfortunately, usually that person is deceased by the time they get this passed. And I don't want that to be the case in Maryland. And I believe Pennsylvania currently, and I know Lori can speak to this, is maybe on the precipice of doing this as well.
Are there any questions? Does the members of the committee have any additional questions? Delegate Valentine.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. And this would be probably best suited for the delegate. Thank you for bringing this bill. My question is, what element or what will this bill do? What tool or action will this provide law enforcement that's not already covered under the current NPR or missing person report system? And the reason I'm asking this is, having taken numerous missing person reports over the years, and especially these type of individuals and these individuals with certain disabilities, and I think the state police, their written testimony actually touched on it. When we have a situation like this, a lot of these resources are already in place, whether it be aviation, whether it be bloodhounds, whether it be search parties for what we consider critically missing, which these folks would fall under critically missing individuals. So I'm trying to figure out what this bill will do on top of what's already being done in these cases.
And I'm not sure, Lori, if you have more specifics about the difference in the way that it's been enacted in other states.
Right. It's
separate from
confusing.
Silver. I think that might be helpful.
Right. It's confusing in other states. In fact, I've had a couple of cases where I've actually had to call, like, for example, in California, I've had to call the California Highway Patrol, who enforces those alerts, to let them know that an agency was not aware that their client qualified for the silver alert, because this agency just assumed it was for the elderly. They don't know their own criteria. It's branded in a way where it's assumed that it is for the elderly. And with so many states that follow that criteria, it's hard to get around that brand.
So my follow-up question would be, so the goal of this bill is to get these cases on message boards on the interstate? Is that the goal of this bill?
No, that's not well, it is if that's appropriate, if that's an appropriate way to find them. This gives the law enforcement more tools, particularly when it comes to getting the media and the public involved in helping to find an individual than they currently have. And to be honest, and with all due respect to those that are doing this work right now, while I've been working on this bill actually for a few years, and I think I gave the history of the legislation during my hearing, we have discovered that, you know, some of our other alert systems aren't working as well as they should either. And that generally what we're seeing are people's faces on a Facebook page. And that is often all that they're getting if we don't pass this bill. And Lori can speak to this as well. I worked with Officer Bradley at the Maryland State Police for 2 years for 2 years, when we brought this bill before we started drafting it, and we're told at that time that there was a huge push at the federal level, and they believed this was going to pass through FEMA. Right at that time, I didn't file the bill because we were told that they were ready to go when the federal law passed, or when the federal regs passed. And then with the change of administration, that did not happen. They decided it would have to happen at the state level. At that time, Officer Brady and the folks at the Maryland Emergency Management were all hip and ready to go on this. And I know that Kathy has been in her job for about 6 weeks now. She was not educated on the history of this and all of the work that we had done up until that point. And while I recognize that she is, giving us the background that she has, I'm not sure that it is really the complete story of all that we've worked on and the agreements that we've had and conversations we've had over the past few years. This came back purely because Delegate Kaufman and Delegate Corman and I were having a conversation about the Down syndrome young man missing in Montgomery County. And they asked, is there something else we can do? And I said, I have this bill that I did not put in 2 years ago. I reached out to the Maryland State Police and said, what happened? Why didn't we have this? Because you told me it was going to happen. And then they said, oh no, that didn't pass. And so we didn't implement those regs. So that's how we got here.
And Ms. Kelly, was there something you wanted to add?
With all due respect, Delegate Guyton, our conversations and the history that you shared, thank you very much for providing that. I was familiar, but we have discussed that alert, even in this conversation, a couple of folks are asking if the highway signs are going to be incorporated for individuals who are critically missing that fall into the categories you are referring to are going to appear on those signs. Because there's limited space on those signs, there's limited opportunity, just a matter of seconds when people are driving by those signs, it's an ineffective additional outreach to try to find a critically missing person who's not in a vehicle. You know, we're not taking a position against this bill, but we are sharing the information that we have and what we currently do. When a critically missing person is reported missing, every effort is taken. Whether or not the media does a big, huge splash, there's very little control we have over that, but the outreach is done through local law enforcement and Maryland State Police. So just wanted to share that for the subcommittee's consideration, what is being done. I think the word alert confuses most people because the expectation is that there's some sort of a sign on a highway where it'll say, you know, Catherine Kelly is missing. But again, with the seconds that a motorist has to see a license, a silver Honda or a silver, you know, fill in the blank make, that's a lot different than a person that they are a special class of person who is missing, where they're missing, the level of information that would have to appear to be beneficial. It's just the opportunity doesn't exist on the roadway signs. But you know, we at Maryland State Police and local law enforcement take it very seriously. Finding missing folks is a serious endeavor, and every effort is taken in each case.
Yeah, and I apologize if I made it sound like they are not doing everything they can. This bill is not about highway signs. I think we probably cleared that up a little while ago. There are a lot of other pieces of the legislation that can help us reach people, but I do believe that other states have found it useful, and I think that Maryland can find it useful. And I would certainly want to err on the side of passing legislation which doesn't cost us anything, right? To help educate the public and the police officers about special people who are missing, then not do that and lose someone in the meantime. So I'll end there because this isn't a hearing, so I apologize.
Okay, thank you, Delegate. I see Delegate Taylor and then Delegate Pastor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I actually have a few questions, so bear with me. The word critically missing kind of throws me if we're keeping them in that same category, because, and I think this came up in the hearing, I think if you're critically missing, that means you've been missing more than 24 hours. And so kind of talk to me about that. Like if you have a child with autism, you know, the 30 minutes after they're missing, to us, it's critical. And I have a child with autism, so I understand that. So talk to me a little bit about that, like, and who do I call? Like if something were to happen to my child, do I need to wait like 30 minutes before I call, or do I call immediately? Like, what's that look like? And then I'll ask my other two questions after you answer that, if it's okay.
To whom is that directed? Me or State Police? Okay. I agree with you, but the reason I brought the bill, Delegate Taylor, is I have a son with autism as well. So, you know, I have vested interest. He's luckily not hopefully going to be in this situation, is much older, but I do think that the important part of this legislation is, no, you don't have to wait 24 hours. And even if someone is over 18, if someone is over 18, when you would normally have to wait 24 hours or longer, if they fall into these categories, then you should not have to do so.
Bye, honey, have fun. I love you, girls.
Half an hour can make a huge difference. And I think I did give you the example during the hearing of a child in Maryland who was missing and less than an hour later was found drowned. Actually, there are multiple children in that category and some older people who have disabilities. So I think you asked what else is really different about this. It trains the police and the responders as well as the public in the best ways to retrieve, to identify, and to help in this search. And they do not have that now in our current programming.
Okay, thank you. And that leads me to my next question with regard to local law enforcement and how do they fit in? Because I guess if I were to call 911, it would go to my local police. I'm assuming that they would need the same type of training if they don't have that already, and they would have to know to call state police to enact the alert, the purple alert. So you could talk a little bit about that. You know what? I'll just throw my last question out there, and it's really, I think I understand why the high school students were written into this and how their engagement might be important. So if you can, just talk a little bit about that too. And that's it. Thank you.
Right. So if you look through the bill and you want to know exactly what would happen, this legislation is really flashed out a lot more than I think some of the other alerts that we actually have in Maryland. Recruiting public and commercial television, local volunteer groups, right? This is an active part of what needs to happen if we institute this alert. Other members of the public, let's see, I know we're allows high school students to assist in the search for a missing person, which goes into whether or not they can utilize it as service learning hours. And we wrote that into the bill because it is actually in some other pieces of legislation similar to this. I'm trying to think of to answer your question. I'm not sure. So caregiver files the report, the local law local law enforcement, and the Department of State Police. But what I have, excuse me, I'm sorry, I'm trying to get all this. That's in silver, yeah. But the difference is emergency management's involved when you're talking about a situation like this. And that's not necessarily the case when you're just, my brother, I haven't seen him in, 12 hours or something like that, right? That's the big difference, is that emergency management is actually a part of this, facilitating this program and facilitating that search, which gives us a whole lot more tools to work with in this situation. And I apologize if I don't know everything about the details. I've learned a lot. I'm still not an attorney or on this committee, so you all probably know more. So forgive me if I misspeak on some of those judiciary terms.
No worries here.
Going back to the critical missing, that's one thing that we really had to advocate for in the beginning. So we put federal guidelines together in 2011, worked with National Center for Missing and Exploited Children because a lot of our teenagers especially and our adults were considered runaways or just able to, they're independent because they were of that age. So, the guidelines state that if somebody has a diagnosis of autism, that they are immediately considered critically missing. Sometimes that depending on the case, it is classified as endangered runaway, but a lot of times we advocate for something called LIM, which is lost, injured, or otherwise missing, which is treated with a lot more urgency. And what's exciting about something like the Purple Alert is it can act as a teaching tool, and in addition to getting that urgency and that spread of information as quickly as possible, especially when time is of the essence, it's a teaching tool for the general public. So many of them still aren't aware that in particular our population, the kids are likely to head straight to water. So that additional element is a very clear and distinct educational tool to search water, as opposed to traditional searches, which is typically inside the child's home it's a lot of times where agencies will start their search.
Madam Chair, you're on mute. Madam Chair.
Can't hear you, Nicole. Delegate Williams.
I forgot I was muted. I'm just talking.
Yeah, you got air quotes and everything going on over there.
Sorry. I was saying, I know Delegate Pastor and Delegate Valentine have a question, but I guess I was looking for the words critically missing in the bill, as well as the emergency management piece. I mean, I see the references in the bill to the Department of the State Police, but I guess I'm just trying to figure out how the emergency management piece automatically gets activated, because I'm not seeing those words actually in the bill.
Okay. Thank you, Delegate Williams. The process is that the state police has to send the alert out through the emergency management system, which really expands the search and the tools that we can use. That's how it's not specifically, I guess, written in the bill, because that's how it already operates with the other alerts.
But this will be, I guess, part of the guidelines that they adopt for the procedures in terms of issuing the purple alert for missing persons that's currently in the bill.
Yes, I mean, that is the way that these alerts generally happen, is through emergency management. And then all of those groups, I think, would come together. And in this case, also with some of the other disability groups, if they choose to do so, to help finalize the regs. I mean, the law as written in this it's got a lot of specificity, but it certainly doesn't have all the regs in it. So that would be up to the department.
Okay. Delegate Pastor, you had your hand up, but now it's gone. So I just want to
No, I don't know why it's going, other than I don't know what I'm doing, but I do still have a question.
You still have a question. Okay, well, go ahead. And then we'll go to
Okay.
Delegate Valentine.
All right. Thank you. It's actually, and I'm happy to have the national person, maybe this person can answer this. And it's the same question I asked at the hearing. I want to really be clear about how the public knows just how different the purple alert is. And all of you from Delegate Guyton to those who are from groups have talked about how different this is from Silver and others and the various alerts. But I am stuck for the rest of my life on the notion that I looked for, along with his parents, my next door neighbor who was autistic, and how much time we spent, including calling the police, when in fact he was in the pool on the neighbor's other side the entire time we were looking. And we had no clue about the attraction to water, and his parents had a pool in their yard for him, a wading pool. He didn't know the difference one from the other. So we spent an inordinate amount of time, wasted time, where we could have saved him. And that's something that's in my head because I'm the one that found him ultimately and jumped in, and it was too late. So I want to know what goes with this. And it's more than an amendment. How did you explain in your area to folks that this was coming, and what it was they were to do, a process? How did it happen so that it's going to really work?
Well, it's going to take time, very honestly. It's going to build as a brand, as any brand name, and it's going to build just like it, with Maddie's Call versus Levi's Call in Georgia. Over time, it's going to build. The good thing is you're not throwing a lot of alerts. They already know what a silver alert is. They already know what an amber alert is. This is, a very good opportunity to teach the general public over time that if they hear that a child with autism or Down syndrome, really, because a lot of those individuals also are attracted to water. They have a comorbidity of autism. To search water first. it has taken us, well over a decade to just educate law enforcement about that. And you'd be surprised at how many people in the general public now, when there's a child missing and when they see that the child has autism, they will tell, on their Facebook pages, on social media, they will tell, the agencies, you got to search water, because they have learned that. So the word is spreading. And I think that there's just a real opportunity here that when your citizens hear Purple Alert, they're going to be able to know right away. There's a good chance if they have nearby water, and that child has autism, there's a good chance that they might go to that and then check it just to make sure.
Okay, so you just cracked into something, and that's good. It's in the verbalizing of the child being missing, because you just said, you'll say this is a child with autism and that they might be prone to going towards water. So if you need, okay, so that's information. That's what I want to know. It's even at the time that the information about the person is being disseminated, that you are giving that additional information. So, okay, that helps. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Delegate Pastor, for making sure that everyone was aware of that. That really is the crux of the bill.
Delegate Valentine and then Delegate Simpson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to clarify for the panel and as well as our committee, there is no statutory 24-hour limit requirement, whether you're above the age of 18, under the age of 18. It's clearly spelled out in statute in Maryland. It also is incumbent upon the police agencies to let the public know that there is no such 24-hour requirement, so that they know when they're reporting individuals. Critical missing individuals follow a wide gambit. It can be simply their age. Under a certain age can include critical missing. It can be any of the cognitive impairments that we're discussing now. And it generates a lot of different things from law enforcement. A question earlier about the state police. The vast majority of these types of reports are handled by local law enforcement, whether it be municipal or county law enforcement. Maryland State Police component is for entry into the National Missing Database as a missing person. There's guidelines for that, into how many hours they have to be before they must be entered into the system. So a lot of these things that we're talking about are already occurring, and I just wanted the committee to know that, and have been occurring for many, many years. So for that, I thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Delegate Valentine. Appreciate your expertise here. Delegate Simpson.
Just quick question, where did the purple color come from? It seems like if you want them to go to the water, maybe aqua would make more, and it would be smaller on the sign.
Thank you. It would be smaller on the sign, but I think consistency is very important. As you can see, a lot of other states are going to Purple Alert, and this was the color that was being discussed at the federal level, and so that's really where it came from. It's hard when you go from Pennsylvania to Maryland and you see a silver or an amber alert, you know what that means, right? If you have a purple alert in Pennsylvania and an amber and an aqua or whatever alert, rainbow alert in Maryland, people are not going to have that same level of understanding. So this is for consistency primarily, and because it was already in use so many other places.
Any other questions from members of the committee? All right. I forgot that we're supposed to ask the sponsor to exit before we take a vote, but thank you so much, Delegate Guyton. Again, I'm rusty. I'm trying to get my bearings straight on this. But thank you so much for answering all of our questions.
Right. I appreciate the opportunity to be here, and I apologize if I talk too much.
No.
Thank you for.
I'd rather have more information than less information. So.
All right. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. All right, and then committee, I know we had skipped over 172, and I know Ms. Kelly's been patiently waiting to talk about 172. So I want to, and I know it's already a little after 5. So I want to try to be respectful of everyone's time. We can come back to 195 in a minute, but I did want to go back to 172. And Ms. Kelly, if you want to talk about 172, thank you. I'm sorry for the delay in getting you into the Zoom.
No worries, ma'am. I just wanted to thank Delegate Valentine as well for sharing everything that I was going to share about the other bill as far as critically missing folks and the timeframes. But House Bill 172, thank you for taking it up. It is a bill that will allow us to incorporate electronic processes for applications and payments. It is the last phase of our automation process. It will definitely save applicants and businesses time and money, and it will augment our accountability as well. Once you take a human element out, not having to do data entry or collect a physical form of payment, errors tend to go down a bit. We were very lucky that the DLS analyst did pick up that there were a couple of categories that were missed. We apologize for the length of the amendments to incorporate those who were missed, but we wanted to try to get all of the applicants covered with this piece of legislation. I do believe there weren't any questions at the full committee hearing, but happy to answer any that you may have.
Thank you. Are there any questions from Ms. Kelly? What were the, Ms. Kelly, I just want to make sure we're clear. What were the additional categories that were added?
I believe it was the security guard technicians and the railroad police were the ones that we missed.
And they are already currently required to submit these applications?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. There's no new applicants being incorporated into the process. These are all those who are required to have licenses today.
Okay. I think this answers all of my concerns. If it's just maintaining the status quo, but just going to an electronic format, is what I'm hearing you say. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Affording us the opportunity to step into the world as it exists today with technology.
Understood. Okay. And I'll just double check again. Are there any committee members that have any questions for Ms. Kelly? Nope. Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, Ms. Kelly. We appreciate you joining us and just kind of providing some clarity on 172 and assisting us as well on 195. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Take care. All right. Committee, I don't know if we want to take up 172 first. There weren't any additional questions. I don't know if folks have any concerns with the bill. It sounds pretty straightforward to me. I was just worried it was adding some new categories that don't currently exist. Because I know in our county, we've had a couple instances with private security entities and things like that. But if this is just maintaining the status quo and simply just requiring them to apply online, I think it's fine. That's just my take. I don't know if anyone else has any takes.
No, like I said, it was my bill before and it passed out of judiciary. It passed the House.
Yeah, it did pass the House. It
Got
died in the
stuck.
Senate last
Yeah.
year is my understanding. Okay. Well, I guess I'll entertain a motion to move. Well, we got to vote on the amendment. So is there a motion to adopt the amendments?
I move to adopt the amendment.
All right. There's
Second.
All right. All in favor, if you can just show your actual hand or virtual hand. Okay, I see one. Okay, all the hands are moving. All right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yes, okay. 7, 8. Yes, 8 for the amendments. Are there anyone that's against the amendment? All right, so there's 8 for the amendment, so the amendment passes. And then is there a motion to adopt favorable as amended?
Madam Chair, I move favorable
Is there
on
a
the,
second?
I second.
Second.
Okay. All right, and then I'll just call the roll. I'll start in reverse order this time just to shake it up a little bit. Delegate Valentine.
Yes, 4.
Okay, this is for House Bill 172. Delegate Tomlinson.
Yes, I'm in favor.
Okay. Delegate Tolles. Delegate Tolles. Okay, we'll come back. Delegate Taylor.
I vote aye.
Delegate Simpson.
I support favorable.
Delegate Schmidt.
Yes.
Delegate Phillips. Don't think is here. Delegate Pastor. Delegate Pastor. We'll come back. Delegate Munoz.
Yes.
Okay. Delegate Crutchfield she has an excuse absence. She did text me beforehand that she's caught up with something else at work. And then Delegate Conway.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Delegate Tolles. And Delegate Pastor. Okay. I'll figure that out later. Okay. All right. Well, the measure, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, that's enough to still pass the measure. So 172 is adopted favorable with amendments. Okay. And then let's move on to 195. I don't know how people feel about 195. I think Delegate Valentine, you brought up some good points. But we can discuss some more if folks would like. Yes, Delegate Valentine.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for letting me explain some of these points. I think the purpose or the intent of the bill is admirable, but I do believe, just in my previous experience, that a lot of these items are already captured, and a lot of these things are taking place in law enforcement today and have been for many years. And that's all I would like to basically relay to the committee, as it were. Thank you.
No, thank you. I guess one of the questions I have, Delegate Valentine, do you think people will become confused if we add another alert? I mean, we already have silver and amber. I guess that's the one worry I have. You know, we start adding all types of different colors to the rainbow. I don't know.
I think that could occur, and I think many of the critically missing individuals that I handled throughout my career, with the resources we use, whether it be aviation, whether it be communities, whether it be, they didn't expand out to our interstates and into those other areas. We did reverse 911 calls to local communities in our neighborhoods, designed, every case is case by case, as we all know. And the resources were usually proportionate to the situation we were dealing with. So I just think, again, I think it's a tremendously admirable bill, but I don't know if it's quite necessary.
No, I definitely am. I definitely understand the concern. You know, my own father had Alzheimer's. And so I remember one time he got in the car and drove off and was gone for a couple hours because he forgot where he was going. And we were a bit worried and concerned there for him for a while, but eventually did find him, and at that point decided it's time to take his keys away from him, which was also a very fun endeavor to tell a grown man that he could no longer drive his own vehicle. So that didn't go over well.
Very, very difficult
Yeah,
to do that.
yeah. I don't know if any other members of the committee have any other thoughts.
I have thoughts. I think that, Delegate Valentine said it, and when I was reading through what the, Maryland State Police said, is that, and I think it was more than just silver and amber. There was, I think, 3 more, like
Yeah, there
a
are.
lemon color and a yellow or something like that. So, but I think it's important that if I say that my son is missing and he's autistic, that they have something that says this is a purple alert, so we act in this way, right? We engage these people. If it's a student, then now we have the ability to engage, maybe the kids in the class or whatever. So I just, even though the process might be the same pretty much, it equips us with, I guess, like she said, the tools to deal with that specific, because you're going to deal a little different with an autistic child than you would with somebody that's 65 or older that has dementia. Just minor,
Yeah,
differences. So
and I agree with your point, Delegate
yeah.
Taylor. I do think that you deal with them very differently, and yet they're all lumped in together in this one bill. And then we're also adding in individuals who are deaf, blind, or hard of hearing, which I think is also treated differently than, say, someone who has autism. So I don't know. I'm very torn about this one. Like I said, I definitely see the sponsor's intent, but it's lumping a lot of different categories that, one, you would probably treat differently, and two, I think, from the state police and from Delegate Valentine, it sounds like they're already doing all of these things, based on the information that they're given at the time when the report is initially made or the call is initially made.
Can I say one more thing, Madam Chair?
Sure.
I was reading over the letter from the state police. I believe it's in the testimony, and I think they cited the case in Montgomery County, and I don't have the document in front of me, but they reviewed that incident afterwards, and I don't know if they said in that document what they could have done differently. And I'm sure if I'm incorrect in that statement, I'll be corrected, but I believe that's how I read that in like their after action. For that particular incident, but I would encourage everyone to read that, as I'm going to read it again.
Yeah, I have it in front of me, and I see the part that you're talking about. It's on page 2 of their letter, and it says MDSP, which I'm assuming is Montgomery County. Oh, no, that's not the Montgomery County. That's the state police. MDSP personnel met with advocates in November of 2023 to discuss a recent Montgomery County, Maryland case. The advocates had heard that MDSP denied the alert for a critically missing adult. When the advocates heard what the MDSP team had done to help in the search, the resources offered, and why the dynamic message sign system was not used, it seemed they completely understood there was no need for legislation to create another alert system, is what's stated there. So, all right, well, maybe it's 5:19. I know we had one other bill we wanted to get to. I don't know if we're going to have time to give it its due attention. Well, maybe, that it deserves. Maybe we'll table this one for right now. And I know the next bill was House Bill 274, which is Delegate Simpson's bill, which I think we had this bill last year, Delegate Simpson, and it passed out of the committee as well as out of the House, but died across the street. And so I don't know if you want to give a quick summary of this bill that we've already heard before. And Claire, are you the counsel on this one as well?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So Delegate Simpson.
Well, it is a one-word bill, so all it changes is, although I'm beginning to think we need to have a wiretapping caucus, just throwing that out there in case that's what we decide to do instead. It's one word, so it just changes it from a felony to a misdemeanor, with, of course, obviously the hope that those who are victims, or, you know, like I said, I don't think most people even know, because, you know, you have your phone. So 37 states, so 74% of our country is a one-party consent, and we are one of those few that are the two-party states. And I think there's two of them that are mixed, depending on whether or not you're doing it, you know, over the internet, or you're doing it in person. So it's, like I said, a one-party thing. My thought is, of course, it, you know, will enable people to come forward. We do have some folks on the line, so I don't know who wants to jump in, Joyce or Debbie or Elizabeth.
No, I think Delegate Williams said it perfectly. I mean, this passed the House last year. Hopefully there aren't any issues or questions. I know that there are different variations of trying to solve the issue of victims recording their own abuse and crimes, and there's a separate, you know, carve out, but I know there's been opposition to this. So at a minimum, MSAA supports at least making this a misdemeanor. I think unanimously, we don't believe that this should be a felony.
But it doesn't change the two-party consent, if I'm correct on that.
Correct.
Oh, it's one word, one word.
Okay. Delegate Conway, I see you have your hand up.
Yes, I was wondering, could we get a little bit better explanation on why this is being changed and who would be affected?
As I said, I think most people would agree that
But that's your opinion. That's your opinion. Go ahead. You haven't taken a poll, or do you have the information?
Okay, making, you know, recording a call would not be to the level of rape or murder, is the thought process. And as we said, for victims who would be recording their own, you know, a crime against them, I think the general consensus would be for folks not realizing this is even against the law. That would be, and that's what we've seen, is those who come forward and find out that when they present the evidence, then they're told that this is a crime that they weren't even aware was a crime. And once again, do we really want it at a felony level as opposed to a misdemeanor?
Right
what happens? What happens when it's a setup? When it's an act?
It's a felony.
And you can prove it. Would it change to a misdemeanor?
It would change to a misdemeanor if this were to pass. So it would still be
Right.
a crime.
It's still a crime.
I didn't ask, was it a crime? I understand it's a crime. I know what a felony is and a misdemeanor. All I asked, would it be a misdemeanor or felony?
A misdemeanor.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional questions? Okay. All right. Yes, Delegate Valentine.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Maybe not a question, maybe a little bit touch on with Delegate Conway for just those situations where it is specific, it is targeted. I'm not talking about walking down the street or down the store. I'm talking about, and I cited last year when this bill was heard, two specific examples of one in a domestic situation where one's other half specifically targeted their spouse to use that against them in court proceedings, whether it be family law or whatnot. And that didn't occur because of his fear, because this was a felony, and that never went forward. Another is an example in the election cycle a few years ago that was relayed to me, where an individual specifically targeted 3 other candidates, trying to specifically target them for private communication. So for me, there's a fear that of those type of cases. I understand the idea in some of the cases brought on by some of the other witnesses, But those are some of the concerns that I have with this bill.
All right. Thank you, Delegate Valentine. Delegate Conway, I see you have your hand up again.
Yes, thank you. I just want to officially thank Delegate Valentine. Thank you so very much, sir, for your clarification.
All right. Any other questions? All right. Seeing none, I'm happy to entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I move favorable.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Thank you. Oh, and hold on. Do we have there are no amendments to 274. Is that correct, Claire?
That's correct.
Okay, I don't have any amendments, so we don't need to vote on any amendments. We can just vote on the bill as is. So we'll do a roll call vote. I will start with Delegate Conway, and this is for House Bill 274.
Well, I was hoping you were going to shake it up, but a little bit.
shook it up
No,
the last
no,
time,
I
Delegate
know. Keep it
Conway.
shaking. Now your head shaking. No,
No?
no.
Okay, I just want to make sure. Delegate Crutchfield is excused. Delegate Munoz.
No.
Delegate Pastor.
Yes.
Delegate Phillips. Not here. Delegate Schmidt.
No.
Delegate Simpson.
Yes.
Delegate Taylor.
I vote aye.
Delegate Tolles. Delegate Tomlinson.
No.
Delegate Valentine.
No.
All right, and the chair votes yay. All right, that's 4-5. Okay.
You mind calling the bill, please?
Sure. The bill does not pass.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, Delegate Conway. All right. Okay, we will come back next week. We have a couple more bills on our agenda. And so we'll come back to 195 and then we'll have a few more bills next week. So it's about 5:28. So this would conclude the meeting of the Public Safety Committee of the House Judiciary Committee. So thank you all so much for your time, and I will see you all